Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us here today. My name is Julian Gonzalez. I am the Marketing and Communications Manager for AUSA. We're going to be starting our webinar here today, here shortly. So sit tight as we wait for a few others to log in and join us today. So we'll be starting here shortly. Thank you. Okay. Again, thank you to everyone for being with us here today. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, and we hope that you're doing well and staying safe. As I mentioned, my name is Julian Gonzalez. I am the Marketing and Communications Manager for the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, otherwise known as AUSA. So to kick things off, I want to, before we get into our webinar and our content, and I introduce today's featured speaker, I want to give you some background on us and who we are, what we do, and upcoming things that we have brewing for you all. So to begin, who is AUSA? AUSA is a national nonprofit dedicated to the employment, development, and advancement of current and aspiring Latino professionals. If I had to give you a one-sentence summary on who AUSA is and what we do, it would be this: AUSA helps Latinos succeed in every phase of their careers, starting off in high school all the way up to professional, executive C-suite level career. On the screen, you can see the many things, the many programs that we provide professionals. Everything from our what is the AUSA program to our leadership program for emerging Latino leaders. We have various programs and services for the various different levels of professional. One thing I would like to note is our upcoming 38th annual national conference, which we had to reschedule. It was supposed to be this month, actually in 2 weeks, but due to the COVID-19 outbreak, we had to reschedule that to August 27th, 28th. To join AUSA, there's not really much to it. There's no membership fee, there's no yearly dues. You can join free by going to our website, ausaonline.org. So please feel free to check us out. Check out our website and sign up for our newsletter at ausaonline.org. Another thing I want to touch on is our new and improved Career Center. Those of you who are already AUSA members or follow us on, whether it's on social media or on our or receive our newsletter, you might have received communications within the past 1 to 2 weeks about our new Career Center. You can reach this Career Center by going to jobs.ausaonline.org. Now this new platform that we're using, this new Career Center, is 100% user friendly compared to the platform that we had previously. This platform gives you the ability to not only search and apply to jobs, upload your resume, but the coolest thing is create job alerts and receive emails each time a job matching your specific criteria becomes available. We have various jobs, over 18,000 currently at this moment, available for you to browse, search, and potentially apply to. Featured companies are Walgreens, Indiana University Health, Granger. The list goes on and on. So please feel free to check out our new and improved jobs center, and let us know how it goes, and let us know what you think. Now, one of the last things I want to get into before I introduce our featured speaker today is our upcoming event. So our weekly virtual webinar for next week is April 22nd, Wednesday at noon, same time as today. Next week we will be touching base on virtual engagement strategies for employee resource groups. So please feel free to register. You can find all of our events and register for this specific event by going to ausaonline.org/events. And lastly, stay connected with us. We know that we have a lot of things coming up with the current climate and everything that's going on. There's various events happening on the web, so please feel free to stay connected to us, whether it's on our LinkedIn page, our Instagram, Facebook page, or Twitter. Please feel free to let us know what you think about our webinars, about our other virtual events, and stay tuned. And lastly, just some housekeeping points before we get into today's webinar. First off, throughout today's webinar, we kindly ask you to use the questions panel at the side of your screen. We will be holding a 10-minute Q&A period at the end of the webinar today. So please feel free to list all of your questions that you may have throughout the course of today's webinar, and we'll be sure to answer as many of them as we can for you. And lastly, a recording of today's webinar will be sent out 24 hours from today's event. So you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar via email. So please stay tuned for that. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Aspira Garcia. Just before I hand off the mic to him, I want to give you his brief bio. As Chief Empowerment Officer of Aspira Consulting, Aspira Garcia empowers you so opportunities come to you. His experience in the technology industry and nonprofit management includes business development roles at 5 startups, co-founding a nonprofit, chamber president and CEO, and founder of Aspira Consulting. He enjoys building and improving programs and forming strategic win-win partnerships. Additionally, he has received various prestigious awards recognizing his successful and innovative efforts to strengthen the bonds between businesses, communities, nonprofits, and education in Silicon Valley. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our featured speaker for today, Aspira Garcia.
Hi, Julian. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm over here in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I'm still having some coffee. And true to nature, you know, us Californians are wimpy when it comes to the weather compared to some of you in other parts of the country. I mean, it is right now probably like in the mid 50s, and it's cold for me here. So, okay. Like Julian said, go ahead, you know, throughout the presentation, send your questions over to Julian, and then I will leave some time at the end for Q&A. And so let's get started here. So today I'm going to be talking about how to successfully interview virtually. Certainly, this is the case, especially right now. And in some situations, virtual interviews were already happening even before the coronavirus. I do believe that as we move forward and return to quote unquote normal, there will still be a lot of virtual interview situations that will take place. So it is very important that we understand how to do these virtual interviews for obvious reasons. Now, here's the thing. Let me first go into, and before I get into my actual talk, I want to share with you really briefly my career journey. I know Julian mentioned a little bit about my bio, but I want to bring it back to this topic here of interviewing and finding your next opportunity. Because the things that I'm going to teach you are things not because I read something, not because I watched a YouTube video, and now I'm going to come and teach it to you. The things that I teach are things that I practice. And this is what I mean. So in my experience, I worked in the tech industry for startups, five different startups for about 12 years. I got laid off 5 times from each of those startups. Not because I was a bad employee, but if you know anything about startups, most of them actually go out of business. And if they keep anyone on the team, usually it's the engineers, software developers. Those of us that are in sales and marketing, we're the first to get the boot, okay? But here's the thing. The most I was ever out of work was 6 weeks after getting laid off. And that was because back then I learned, and I still do, I learned how to network, right? Interviewing, et cetera, and so forth. Next, I also, so one of the things, the questions or concerns that many of us have is when we look at a job description, how should I apply for that position? I'm not qualified, or you know what? No, you know, that's just not the right area for me. You know, if you're looking to transition careers. I've actually been hired for when I transitioned from tech to being the chamber CEO. I had 0 experience. I didn't even know what a chamber of commerce did. My competition had 25 years of chamber experience, was the interim chamber CEO, and was loved by the board. Like, seriously, what are my chances, right, of getting hired? And I did. Also, I've been in situations too where companies have created a job for me and they said, hey, we've got the rec approved. Are you ready to come on board? That's what happened with LinkedIn. After almost 7 years of running the local chamber of commerce, I decided I needed or I wanted to make a change. And I went to do a 1-year contract consulting job at LinkedIn, and they created the opportunity for me. Now, if you know anything about getting a job at companies like LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, some of these really, you know, that everyone and their mother wants to go work for, it's super competitive, okay? 0 interviews. Also, I've been in situations too where a company also has come to me and, you know, said, hey, we want you to come, we have this opportunity. And see, today, as being in business for myself, there's 2 things that I do. One is what I'm doing right now, and that is the training. But the other part of it is the consulting work, where I work with companies, organizations on a project by project basis. Sometimes that project lasts a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year. And what that means is I'm doing what many of you are out there looking to do, and that is interview, right? But the thing is that because I know, again, the interview and the things that I'm going to teach you, these companies will come to me and say, hey, we've got this problem, this situation. Can you help us out? So overall, I have made 11 career transitions. Now, some of you, because I know most of you are out in the Midwest, maybe East Coast, or in industries where that's like, oh my gosh, what? Like you've been working at the same company since you were 12 years old. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Here in Silicon Valley, unfortunately, that has changed, with especially in the tech industry. A lot of movement, okay? If you're at a company for 3 years, people here are looking at companies, looking like, what's wrong with you, okay? I'm not judging that, good or bad. It has its pluses and minuses. But again, the things that I'm going to teach you are things that I am currently practicing. Okay, first things first. Let's get into here what you need to do here. 1 second. So, the first thing that you need to do, okay, before I get into this whole, some tips on virtual interviewing, is it is critical, vital that you write down and you know what your career story is. I'm willing to bet that if you and I were sitting across the table, having some coffee, meeting for the first time, and I asked you, hey, so tell me, what's your story? Why are you looking? Most of you would fumble. Most of you would say, well, I don't know, I'm just not happy where I'm at, or, I don't know, well, what kind of jobs are you interested in? I'm like really open to a lot of things. Can I tell you something? I don't know you, and my first impression of you, and this is what most of you will come across, right, in an interview or on a resume or your networking, is you come across wishy-washy. You come across unfocused, okay, that you don't know what you want. And so by putting together your career story, you're going to come across on point with a purpose and a vision of where you're going and why you want to go into that industry. And in the interview process, that's what employers are looking for. They're not looking for some wishy-washy person. So here's some things to help you craft that story so that it is impactful. Number one, I want you to know what your why is. Why do you do what you do? Now, I do a complete talk, and later I'll give you the website. I've done some other webinars and some free courses that I have online that talk about, excuse me, your personal brand that you can log on and watch them for free, okay? But your why that I'm referring to, typically there's two types of why. There's the why, what's in it for me, and there's the why, what's in it for you or the employer. In this case, I'm talking about the why, what's in it for the employer, okay? In my situation, my why, what's in it for you and prospective client is I empower you so opportunities come to you. Next, who are you? In this case, I'm talking about what are some of your personality traits, okay? If I was to talk to some of your friends and tell them about you, what would they say? And are you describing yourself that way? And then number three is that's where you talk about your career journey. Hey, Oscar, you know what? I've been working, in the nonprofit world for the last 12 years. The reason I got into it was because, blah, 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 blah. I'm doing this, et cetera, and so forth, blah, blah, blah. I'm working on these projects. And then along with your career journey, you talk about your vision. Where are you going? What do you want to accomplish? So again, your why, who are you, your career journey, and your vision. Now, here's the thing. Most of you are boring, okay? You're boring. Your story is super boring. It is more exciting to watch grass grow than to listen or read your story online. So here's some things that I want you to do. Avoid some of these filler words, okay? I looked at some of your LinkedIn profiles, and some of you have some, like, you're treating, like, for example, that section, your about section, like it's a career objective on your resume, okay? Or you come across like this, saying words like results driven, experience, self-motivated, detail-oriented, team player. Like, can I tell you something? When I was the head of the chamber and I was interviewing candidates, I expect you to have those things. How is that differentiating? When you tell me that you're results driven, whether it's on your resume, in an interview, or whatever, how is that differentiating you from all the other people that are saying the same thing? It doesn't. Let me show you an example. So Angelica wants to be a ethnic studies professor. And her story that she wrote, in this case, it's on her LinkedIn. It says, I am a master's student at San Jose State University who aspires to one day become a professor of ethnic studies. My goal as a future educator is to help create an engaging, creative, and strong educational foundation for future generations. My passion for education has been an ongoing cause that has led me to volunteer for organizations such as Mesa de la Comunidad and Aspira. By pursuing my passion for academia, I hope to expand my horizons and gain more insight into a world of limitless possibilities. Folks, you see this, her career story? She has the things that I mentioned earlier, okay? Her why, she talks about her career journey, right? Her vision. See, this is her vision. Obviously, she has zero experience of being a college professor, but she's selling her vision and her story. And see, the thing is that if he was to reach out to me for an introduction to whoever it is, and I read this, I'm going to be blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this girl knows what she wants. Again, that on purpose, on point story. And the thing too is when you have your career story and you're going into that interview, you can then take bits and pieces of it and adjust it accordingly. It's like cooking, folks. Try cooking a meal when your fridge is empty and your cupboards are empty. Good luck, because you're not going to have very many options. But go grocery shopping and fill up that fridge and fill up the cupboards, and all of a sudden you have options, right? So when you have a nice, robust story, you're going to be able to adjust it in that interview, because oftentimes when you interview, you're interviewing with not just one person, but a bunch of different people, right? And oftentimes they'll ask you different questions, or they're at different levels in the organization. Okay, the second thing that I want you to do, okay, in preparation is put together your dream team. Now, some of you are like, what the heck are you talking about, Oscar? Dream team. Okay, let me tell you something, okay? Some of you ever had quinceañeras, okay? Or maybe your brother and you were right, chambelán. Go find your padrinos and madrinas here, okay? We did that, right, for quinceañera. Well, I didn't do it for a quinceañera, but you get my point, right? You go, what does that mean? Or what do I mean? Listen, throughout the interview process, you're going to be interacting with different people in the organization or that are involved in the hiring process. Maybe a recruiter, obviously the hiring manager. There might be someone in the organization, or maybe someone that knows someone in the organization that can be your champion, your advocate. Maybe it's a close friend, again, that knows someone, okay? Or an influencer. See, sometimes some of us dismiss executive assistants because we're like, oh, what is he or she, you know, like what role? Buddy, executive assistants, can I tell you something? They're the neck that turns the head. So you start putting together this dream team, right, of people as you are going through this interviewing process so that they become overall the team that helps you secure that opportunity. How do you do this? It's follow the ABCs, folks. ABC, always be connecting with people, all right? You can look them up, obviously, on LinkedIn. I can tell you, hardly any of you look me up on LinkedIn, okay? If any of you. And I don't care that you did. I'm not saying it because you're here to stroke my ego, but it tells me something about the fact of your inability to connect and think about what it is that you need to do. All right. I didn't need to look up your guys' profile because obviously I'm not hiring or anything like that, but I did because it helps me prepare for this talk to tailor it. You should be preparing and looking to connect so you can put together this dream team so you can kick some butt and secure that opportunity. All right. The pre-interview. What are some things that you can do? So, number one, again, research the company and the contact. Look them up, Google them. Look them up, not just on LinkedIn, all social media, okay? Why? Because what you're looking to do is to understand more about the company. What are some of the issues right now that they're going through, right? The person that you're going to be interviewing with, What are some hot buttons? If you were to connect with me on LinkedIn, you would see that for me, I'm a first generation professional. And the things that I share oftentimes, career related, et cetera, I tie that back to my experience. Okay, maybe that's an area where we can connect or you can connect, or if nothing else, maybe we don't connect, but at least you can bring that up, right? Next, obvious one, test your equipment. Julian and I logged in about 15, 20 minutes prior to this. Even though I've done a gazillion webinars and talks, you just never know, right? You test things out, test your equipment. One of the things that, for example, I use Zoom, okay? And I don't know, I'm assuming that this is the case with other platforms, but with Zoom, I can just log in as myself, obviously not invite anyone, and just practice. All of a sudden the video screen shows up, the camera's on, I can even record myself, you know, all that type of stuff. I'm testing the equipment, making sure everything is working properly. Logistics. Where are you going to be doing your interview? You know, what part of the house? I've seen some situations where people are in the bedroom and in the background, you see their closet, okay? Disorganized closet. Lighting, okay? You can buy, some of you already use those, I forget what they're called, but those circular lights that are like tied to your phone, right? When you take your selfies. You can use some of that lighting for the laptop camera, just to give you some more lighting. I have some lighting on right now. If I turned it off, I'd be like really dark. Next, practice, 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 practice. Okay, practice. This is super, super important. Okay, maybe you call another buddy up. Maybe you call your brother, your sister, your significant other, and like, hey man, you know what? Let's practice here, role playing, being on the camera, et cetera, and so forth. Because I'm going to tell you something. I'm used to giving talks in front of people, audiences, large groups, right? And if you notice, I'm very kind of animated. The first few times that I did webinars since the shelter in place, I felt like, you know, an animal, you know, like a lion caged up. I could only move 1 foot to the right, 1 foot to the left. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd like feel uncomfortable. Today, you know, I've kind of gotten used to it. Okay, I've gotten used to just working in a short little space, but it's because of the practice, practice, practice. And then the other thing that's really important, folks, that very few people, okay, only about 2% of the people do this. I want you to prepare what I refer to as a wow collateral. Wow collateral. Let me show you an example. So this short little video, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was interviewing with a co-founder of a startup, and I had met with a couple other people in the organization, right, and to understand what they were looking for, et cetera, and so forth. So the co-founder and I are sitting at a table, and you know, he's going through the typical questions. So, hey, Oscar, you know, why this opportunity, this and that, et cetera, and so forth. And then he comes and he says, Oscar, so tell me, what's your understanding of this opportunity? In this video, I created it on my phone, and I had it on my phone, and I pulled out my phone and I said, can I show you just a really short little video? I think it's like 30 seconds. He's like, okay. Boom, I hit play. I showed him this video, and as soon as we were done, his eyeballs were like this big. He's like, oh, wow. He's like, did you make that video? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know marketing too? I'm like, I don't, but you know, bottom line is I wowed him. I impressed him because I went above and beyond the regular understanding of the opportunity and the expectations of what I could bring to the table, to the party, right? This is what I mean by that wow collateral. And see, this takes some effort, because the approach also that I take and that I teach people is quit applying for a bunch of jobs online. Click, 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 click. No, have a target list. And when you have a target list, then you go deep in and you create something like this because it takes effort. What most of you do, most of you treat your job search like it's online dating. You know, you wink at 100 people, hope half a person, you know, winks back at you. Don't do that. Oops. Okay, virtual interview. So here's some tips. Number one, make sure that in the interview, you have the job description and questions that you are going to ask about the opportunity. Print it out. That's typically, for me, that works out better, okay, to print out, because it's kind of hard to have split screen and all that type of stuff, okay? So print out the job description. You've highlighted, circled, or whatever, you know, key areas, skills, you know, areas where you can just drive in your point and why you are, you know, the baddest person for that opportunity. Have some questions. Remember I told you about doing some research, okay, on the company and the individual? Build some rapport. Again, I do another talk, all right, on how to build and nourish relationships, how to turn that stranger into a casual acquaintance, but it's about building that rapport. Obviously, if you've done research on the individual, okay, you're going to have a better understanding of the you know, about that person, what they like, et cetera, and so forth, areas of interest. Make sure you are taking some notes. Obviously, have some notes as well. And then the other thing too is, folks, dress up. I don't care, even if it's just from the waist up, okay? Dress up, you know, professionally, as if you're going in for that interview. Smile. But Oscar, I hate my smile. I know, so do I, okay? And then I go work at the Chamber of Commerce and we have all these like ribbon cutting ceremonies. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm taking a bunch of pictures, this and that. I hate my smile. I started practicing my smile. My staff used to give me a hard time. Like, Oscar, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm practicing my smile. You're like, you're silly. I'm like, listen, one day I'm going to look back at those pictures and I'm not going to like the way I look. Hey, today I'm good to go. Smile. But it's not just because you look good. It's because you come across friendly when we smile. The other thing too is, in my case, what I found is when I'm standing up right now, okay? I found out that if I'm standing, kind of like more energy, the air, you know, it just goes through me. I can breathe better versus, you know, I'm sitting down at a desk and I tend to like slouch or whatever. And I'm just like standing because it just gives me more energy, okay? The standing or sitting down, you figure out your style. But the key that I want you to take away from this point is that whatever gives you the most energy, do it. Make sure you ask and answer questions. I'm going to give you some examples of some questions that they might ask you, as well as questions that you can ask as well. Make sure also that you always ask for specific next steps. This is an area where many of us blow it. The recruiter or the hiring manager, hey, Oscar, you know what? So great. I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks, and we have some more candidates, right, that we're interviewing. Like that's a standard answer. Okay, that's fine. What I want you to do is, hey, Bob, you know what? Thank you very much for the opportunity. You mentioned, that you're interviewing some other candidates in a couple of weeks. I'm looking at my calendar, so that puts us out to whatever, May 4th. If I haven't heard from you from May 4th, I'll reach out to you. Is that okay? See, that's what I mean by being specific, okay? And then don't forget, also the obvious one, thank them. Okay, some questions to answer and ask. You can Google this. I just happen to pull out some questions here to help you out, okay? But some questions that typically they ask in the interview, why are you looking, right? So you gotta have an answer to that. What do you know about the position? Tell me about yourself. This is a very common one too. Remember that career journey story that I told you about? Why are you interested in this position? Now, these next three questions are questions that you can ask the person interviewing you. Ask them, why is the position open? The reason why I believe this question is important because it tells you whether, hey, maybe someone was in that position, maybe it's a new position, the company is growing, you know, it just gives you a better understanding of where the company is at with the needs of that, of filling that position. Next question, what is the biggest challenge someone will face in this job in the next 6 months? You ask them that. This is a great question, because when they start giving you an answer about, well, you know, this and that, you know, the person comes in, you know, and they do, you know, it helps you be able to then take your skill sets, what you bring to the table, and adapt your response accordingly. And then lastly, at the very end, I love this question too. Ask them this question, Bob, sounds like everything went well. Thank you very much for your time again. One last question. Do you have any concerns about me? So it could be kind of scary, right, to ask this question, because we can get rejected at that point or not. But the reason why, listen, I'd rather get rejected right up front, okay, at that point, than be like dragged along about, you know, 2 weeks and 3 weeks go by, a month go by, whatever. Here in this case is the person can tell me either A, yes, you know, you lack this experience or that, or maybe they can say, you know what, no, Oscar, I really like that. And they start telling you your strengths. So guess what? In that follow-up email, that thank you, you can highlight some of those things that they told you that they like about you. Okay, the follow-up. This is also important here. So after the call or the virtual interview, again, make sure you're asking about the next steps. Like I said, send them that thank you email. Ask them if you can connect with them on LinkedIn. Remember I told you about putting together that dream team? Start connecting with the people. Say, hey, is it okay if I connect with you on LinkedIn? Next, if you have a personal website, and this is something that I'm seeing more and more common, folks, it's getting competitive. It is competitive out there, okay? You can actually create, you can email me if you want, because like I said, I'll give you my contact information. I'll send you a link to a website of a friend of mine. It is very, very simple website. It looks very professional. It's just another way to highlight your experience, your personality, aside from your resume, your LinkedIn profile, etc. Follow up on the progress. I told you 2 weeks go by and you haven't heard anything. Follow up with them. If you connect with them on LinkedIn, guess what? Maybe you can share an article and tag that person, okay? Or comment on a post that maybe they've made as well. You're staying top of mind. And then lastly, if you haven't done this, I highly encourage you, A, get a professional looking kind of email. When I say professional, like ideally if you get, you know, oscargarcia@gmail.com, perfect, okay? It's highly doubtable that still exists. But listen, oscarpapichulo@gmail.com ain't gonna cut it, okay? Some of you need to like stop that. The other thing too, and I don't agree with this, but there's age discrimination. Some of you need to like stop using your svcglobal.net or Hotmail email address, because it's dating you. It's like me showing up to the webinar wearing a ruffle shirt that my uncle wore back in the 70s when he got married. What'd you think of me? Like, what's this dude? Like, right? And then you create your email signature, because, right, we have email signatures in our work email. In this case, your personal email signature is just your name. Maybe it's your phone number, your email address again. Maybe it's a link to your LinkedIn profile, your website, wherever it is you want to direct someone to. And then maybe down underneath below, some keywords of some skills that you have. That becomes your professional email signature. All right, folks, you can let Julian know if this webinar so far has been helpful. I'm going to open it up to some questions here, but I welcome any input, good, bad, or ugly, okay? It always helps me just improve things as well. So please, you know, let me or let him know if this webinar has been helpful so far to you. Before I open it up to some questions, I want to share something with you. The interview process is just that. It is a process along the journey of getting and finding your next opportunity. In my opinion, there are 5 key steps to attracting opportunities. And the first one is creating your brand. Like I said, some of you have looked on your LinkedIn profile, you don't have a brand, okay? You don't. And here's the thing, if you don't have a brand, you still have a brand actually, because it's what people think of you when they first see you, whether it's in person or whether it's online. Work on that. Next, start building up your online presence, LinkedIn, personal website, maybe clean up some of your social media accounts, okay? Or maybe create, in some cases, maybe create another social media account that highlights your area of expertise, what you're interested in. Start networking, building and nourishing relationships, okay? And then fourth thing that I want you to do is start getting active, sharing content. By sharing content, you are giving your advice, your tips, your 2 cents. And when you do that, that leads to activity, et cetera, and so forth. The reason why I'm here virtually through this webinar is because Patricia and I are connected on LinkedIn, and she saw me do a post on one of my first webinars, and she reached out to me and she's like, hey, can you do blah, blah, blah? And look at this. It was because of my activity, okay? Stop trying to be perfect, folks. Activity will always beat perfection. Let me say that again. Activity will always beat perfection. You do these things, that's then going to lead to that credibility, that trust, and you're going to be able to attract opportunities, okay? Quit begging for your next opportunity. Be in that position where you are attracting opportunities. Here's my phone number. You can reach out to me. You can even text me. There's my email address. There's the Aspira training platform URL. Like I said, there is some free content. There's also some paid content there. In fact, there's more free content than paid, okay? So those of you that are like, oh my gosh, you know, trying to be skeptical here with me, knock it off, okay? There's plenty of free stuff. Follow me on LinkedIn. You'll notice that I share also a tremendous amount of free content there on LinkedIn. So, Julian, I'm going to turn it over to you for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. Can you hear me perfect?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you. So first off, we received a lot of comments on your presentation, saying that, you know, it's super helpful. Thank you for the tips. People getting a lot of advice here from you, so appreciate that. The first question we have is from Monica. She wants to see if you can clarify more about the email address, and she asks, are you suggesting not to use @Gmail or @Hotmail, or are you talking about your email name, such as, and she gives an example, such as msegura19?
Yeah, so two things. Thank you, Monica, for that question. So two things. What I'm suggesting is, as far as your email address, number one, your email address, use an email address that's more appropriate for if a company, a hiring manager, recruiter sees your email address. Okay, it's more, in my case, like I told you, Oscar Garcia, I thought there was only one Oscar, right? When I was a kid, I used to, people make fun of me. They'd call me Oscar Mayer Wiener, right? So I hated my name, right? But mine is, my Gmail is oscar.garcia2020@gmail. I mean, that's appropriate. That's what I mean. The other part, as far as what email platforms, Gmail is more commonly used right now. There are email address platforms like sbcglobal.net. That was one of like the first ones I remember back in the mid 90s, right? Hotmail was another one. AOL. I mean, some of those email addresses, platforms, excuse me, they date you. So I would encourage you to use something more current.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Oscar. The next question we have for you is, what is a good length for a career story on LinkedIn?
You know, roughly about a paragraph, anywhere from about 5 to 6 sentences. What that career story is meant is, it's meant to draw people into your profile. It is not meant to get you hired, because, right, it's meant to draw people in, invite them in. So if you follow those steps that I mentioned earlier, your why, who are you, your career journey, and your vision. It will help you write a very compelling and attractive career story.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So the next question we have is from Evelyn. Now, Evelyn asks, how do you go about getting into major companies like LinkedIn if you don't know anyone there? Where do you start? How do you reach out?
Great place to reach out, Evelyn, is actually using the LinkedIn platform. One thing that you can do is, are you still seeing my screen, Julian?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if, do you see my LinkedIn profile right now or no?
Not your LinkedIn profile. We need to see your contact information.
Okay, hang on one second here. Let me see. How do I change so you can see my my screen? How do I? Oh, there we go. Sharing. Let's see. How do I? It's trying to show my screen.
On the settings to the right, on the toolbar, on the control panel, there should be a sharing tab, and you can go to that and share.
Okay.
Whether it's your
Sorry,
screen.
guys. Oops. Oh, here we go. Okay. There we go. You see it now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, Evelyn, this is applies to any company, but what I would first do is I would go to LinkedIn, obviously on LinkedIn. So go to the company page, and to the right, this is because I'm logged in as myself. That's why you're seeing this. But to the right, you see over here where it says Meg and 67 connections work here. So if I have anyone that I'm connected to that works at LinkedIn, it's going to show me who these people are. The other thing that I can do is within LinkedIn is I can search for people within a specific job title, and they can then tell me, if I want to go into, I don't know, human resources, right? It will tell me, one, if I'm a first degree connection, that means we are connected on LinkedIn. If it says 2, that means we are not connected, but we have mutual connections. And it will tell me who those mutual connections are. And the best way that I recommend is I would approach my mutual connections, ask them to make an introduction to whoever that person is in human resources or whatever that department, because it increases the chances. That's how I would recommend that you approach not just LinkedIn, but any large company that you want to get your foot in the door as well. And then remember, also I mentioned that once you identify some of these people, follow them on social media. See if you can follow them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Certainly, obviously on LinkedIn. So that's what I recommend.
Awesome. Great tips. Wow, we keep getting more and more.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
The next one from Hilda is there a difference when interviewing for a nonprofit or a for-profit place of business?
Well, yeah, the pay. So it's true though, you guys. But one of the things, there's several differences. One is that when you're interviewing for a nonprofit, depending on the size of the nonprofit, right? If it's a large, national nonprofit, it's going to be run more like a traditional company, okay, a for-profit company. But typically, it's a smaller organization, less hierarchical. You're going to see who the board members are because typically they list those on their company page. It's great to, network with those board members. But when you're interviewing for these companies, it's important that you focus on those transferable skills if you're coming from the private sector into the nonprofit. And then it's also important that you share, I think, more of your heart in that interview. I think it's more that industry nonprofit, it's more open to you sharing more of that compassion, that heart of why you're interested in that cause and that nonprofit. So those are some of the differences.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question from Maria is, any specific tips for internal virtual interviews for promotions?
Yeah. So some of the things too that I mentioned as far as building that team is also very, very important. For internal interviews, I've kind of heard, it kind of can go both ways. It can be where the company is very, like, they open it up, the job rec, to the outside world, et cetera, and so forth, right? And they're very kind of, rigid, as if you're an outsider. Or it's situations where people are more casual. It's like, hey, I know you, et cetera, tell me. And really, in this particular case, when you're interviewing internally, one of the biggest things that I encourage you to do is don't let your guard down from the standpoint of treating that person or that interview too casual from your standpoint. Because sometimes we go into this interview, it's like, oh, like your coworkers, and like maybe you've gone out to lunch several times, and you're in that interview and you kind of treated that person like overly casual. And that's probably the biggest tip that I do is don't do that. Just treat it, again, professional, and do the homework and the preparation that I mentioned earlier.
The next question is from Elizabeth, and she asks, for those of us with experience in different industries and open to jobs in different fields using transferable skills, how do you recommend we curate our LinkedIn profile?
Great question. So, because I've fallen into that situation myself, based on my career journey. So, what I would encourage you to do is that you identify 1, 2, no more than 3 industries that you want to pursue, and therefore your LinkedIn profile, your career story, the skills section that you list, highlight those. Okay, highlight those 3 industry skills that are pertinent to that industry, because otherwise, if you don't, then you're going to come across wishy-washy. And but at the same time, it's kind of this balance of a dance where you don't want to come across wishy-washy, but you also don't want to come across too specific, that when someone looks at your profile or someone recommends you for an opportunity, they look at it and like, wait, why is this person looking here? But you said this. So it's that balance that I mentioned. So that's how I recommend to do it.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Another question from Elizabeth. I believe it's a different Elizabeth, but she asks, fast forward past the interview, any tips to negotiate salary?
You know what? I do negotiate, but the truth is, I'll be honest with you, that's not my area of expertise in terms of negotiating, a salary. So I apologize. I can't give you anything at this moment specifically.
Next question from Angelina. On LinkedIn, I have my profile anonymous when I view others. If I am seeking a new career opportunity, should I make myself known to those I am looking at on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so as far as that, so LinkedIn gives you 3 options: anonymous, semi-anonymous, and then you can have it open where people see your picture, your name. I get it. Depending on certain situations or industries that you work in, it makes sense to have it anonymous. If you're actively looking, or you're in an industry where, it doesn't matter, it's your LinkedIn profile, right? Leave it open, because what happens is that when you look at someone's profile, they're going to see that you looked at their profile, and typically what that is it invites the other person to also look at your profile, and that oftentimes will lead to an invitation to connect. It's really the first step to networking. In this case, think of it as a virtual networking thing that we do. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you walk into the traditional networking like a business mixer. It would be silly to think that we would walk into a mixer, a room full of people, and we have our face covered and we're like shaking hands. Hi, I'm Oscar Garcia, and you can't see the person's face. I mean, that would be weird, right? Like people would be like, "What's up with Oscar?" Or won't even know my name. They're like, "What's up with that dude?" When you do it like that anonymously, that's kind of how it comes across. Okay, so you don't miss out on those opportunities to network.
Awesome. Next question is from Margaret. She says, I have 20 years of working experience in the same field. What would you suggest for years of experience on my resume?
So Margaret, in your situation, obviously keep those 20 years of experience that you have there. But in this case, and I'm switching to my LinkedIn profile so you can see. So if you notice here on LinkedIn, it gives us the ability to add various positions that we have that we have held within the same organization. And now it nicely gives you this gray little line dots here on the left that visually lets the viewer know, oh, you know, Oscar does this and he does this, et cetera, within the company. So that's how I would list your assuming, right, that you have you've held different positions in the company. If you haven't, if you've been doing the same position for the last 20 years, well, obviously you just list that. But you also want to, what you want to do on your profile is you want to expand and give examples of your roles and responsibilities. One of the tips that I give people to save ourselves some time, because I'm not a professional HR person that writes job descriptions, is ask human resources for your job description. And assuming you've done that work, just copy some of that wording onto your LinkedIn profile, your resume. Why do I tell you that? Because you're using relevant terms. For the longest time, I used to refer to myself as co-founder of a nonprofit. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, I started hearing the term social entrepreneur. I was like, what the heck is social entrepreneur? And I looked it up. I'm like, shoot, that's me. So guess what? Social entrepreneur. Tomorrow they come up with a new word, I will change it. Okay. Next, if you have another experience, you know, that you feel is relevant to whatever position you might be pursuing after beyond this 20 year, go ahead and list it too. Okay, in your situation.
Awesome. It's all about staying relevant and staying up with the times.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, the last two questions. If you apply to a position at Amazon, for instance, and another position opens up that you are also interested in, do you advise applying for multiple positions at the same time? And she also, Evelyn also states, these positions are somewhat related but different.
So Evelyn, what I would encourage you to do before you apply to that second position, understand who is, if it's in the same department, you know, it does a report to either the same manager or is it a different department? Because again, I'm a huge fan, right? When I'm coming into an opportunity, remember I mentioned about a targeted list, okay, of companies that I go after. I want to come across like, hey, I understand your need. I can do the job. This is why. And it's, again, on point, on purpose. I don't want to create this image with the recruiter, hiring manager, or whoever's involved in the interviewing process that I'm wishy-washy. So do that first. Do some research to see where they fall. Now, if they're in different departments, go ahead and apply to that other opportunity as well. And at the right time, and you can tell, you know, when it's the right time, you can let them know, hey, you know what, I'm also, there's another opportunity within the company that I'm interviewing for that I applied, okay? But always, okay, the key thing here, folks, is networking, okay? When you have that dream team put together, they're gonna also give you very specific advice based on that opportunity within the organization.
Awesome. Now the last question that we have is, For those of us with professional degrees, let's say a PhD, and seeking opportunities in higher positions within an organization, do you recommend hiring a headhunter, or what other tips for networking and getting quote unquote foot in the door do you recommend? I have tried seeking network sponsors from within and not getting much results.
Okay, so I would encourage you to get I actually would encourage you to get like a career coach, because I don't know why it is that you're not getting response. And see, and here's the other thing too. And I'm not saying, because obviously I don't know your specific situation, but sometimes our effort doesn't meet a realistic effort. Okay, what do I mean by that? About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a gentleman reach out to me and say, you know what, Oscar, I've been reaching out to my network for introductions, and I'm just like, getting anyone to refer me to anything or respond to my messages. And I said, well, can I ask you how many people do you reach out in a week? And he said, oh, about 12. I said, okay, let's just use the 80-20 rule. So let's just say 20% of those people will respond to you. Okay, that's 2 people, right? 3 people maybe that will respond. And of those 3 people, how many of those are actually going to make an introduction, and how many of that is going to lead to potential interview? You see where I'm going with the numbers? Okay, so when you're telling me that you're not getting responses, I don't know how many people you're reaching out to. If you're reaching out to 100 people, that's 20 people, that might respond to you. That's not bad, okay? But that's why I recommend hire a career coach, because they can give you some specifics, not just on the effort that you put into it, but also help you get you from the door. Because sometimes, depending on the opportunity, what I hear is people that are highly educated, PhDs, their degree ends up working against them, at least to get the foot in the door, because they view you as overly qualified. And you have to be able to learn how to navigate through that.
Awesome. That was really great question and great answer. Thank you, Oscar.
Yes.
So for time's sake, I know we're just 2 minutes over the hour. I think I want to be mindful of everyone's time and everything. And first off, I want to thank everyone for being here, as well as you, Oscar, for presenting and being our featured speaker today.
No, of course, you're welcome, and thank you, Asa, for what you're doing, and thank you, everyone. Like I said, you can reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, or there's my contact information. I'm very accessible. I think I just need to give you my social security number, and we're good to go. So great. All right, thank you, Julian, for doing a great job moderating. All right, appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.